It said, have you ever wondered about the first people to call the Americas home? I'm not talking about the explorers who crossed the Atlantic a few hundred years ago. I'm talking about the people who have lived here for thousands of years, building vibrant cultures and complex societies long before anyone else arrived. Today, we're going on a journey to explore the incredible story of Native Americans. Let's rewind the clock, way back, like over 15,000 years ago. During the last ice age, massive glaciers covered much of North America. Sea levels were much lower, revealing a land bridge that connected Asia and North America, what we now call the Bering Land Bridge. Small groups of nomadic hunters, following herds of mammoths and caribou, crossed this bridge. These were the ancestors of all indigenous peoples of the Americas. It wasn't a single event, but a series of migrations over thousands of years. From the icy Arctic to the tip of South America, they spread out, adapted, and thrived. Now, let's bust a common myth. The idea of a single, uniform Native American culture is just not true. Imagine trying to describe all of Europe with one label. The Americas were home to thousands of distinct groups, each with their own language, traditions, and way of life. The diversity is just staggering. For example, up in the Pacific Northwest, tribes like the Tlingit and Haida were master woodworkers. They are famous for their towering totem poles, which are not just art. They are intricate stories, recording family histories, legends, and important events. They lived in a land of plenty, with rich forests and abundant salmon, which shaped their entire culture and spirituality. Travel down to the arid Southwest, and you'll find a completely different world. Here, the ancestral Pueblones, ancestors of modern Pueblo peoples, like the Hopi and Zuni, became expert architects and farmers. They built incredible multi-story cities right into the cliffs, like the famous Cliff Palace at Mesa Verde. How did they survive in such a dry climate? They developed sophisticated irrigation systems, growing corn, beans, and squash, the three sisters, which formed the foundation of their diet. Now let's head to the Great Plains. When you think of plains, Indians, you probably picture tipis and bison hunts on horseback. And you'd be right. But that's only part of the story, and a relatively recent part at that. Before the arrival of horses with the Spanish, most plains tribes were settled farmers who also hunted bison on foot. Horses revolutionized their way of life in the 1700s, making them incredibly mobile and efficient hunters. This led to the nomadic, bison-focused culture of tribes like the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Comanche that we often see in movies. And over in the eastern woodlands, which stretch from the Atlantic coast to the Mississippi River, you had a huge variety of societies. Some, like the Iroquois Confederacy or Haudenosaunee, formed a powerful political alliance of 6 nations. This league of peace and power was so sophisticated that some historians believe it influenced the framers of the U.S. Constitution. They lived in longhouses, farmed, and had a matrilineal society where lineage and inheritance were traced through the mother's side. These are just a few examples, but they show how incredibly adaptive and innovative Native peoples were. They weren't just surviving, they were building complex political systems, trading networks that spanned the continent, and creating profound spiritual and philosophical traditions. For instance, the concept of walking in beauty from the Navajo, or Dine people, is a philosophy of living in harmony with the universe. Many cultures shared a deep respect for nature, viewing the land not as something to be owned, but as a living entity to be cared for. Let's talk about some of their incredible contributions that have shaped the world we live in today. Did you know that about 60% of the world's food supply comes from crops first domesticated by indigenous peoples of the Americas? We're talking about potatoes, tomatoes, corn, chocolate, vanilla, and so many different types of beans and peppers. Imagine Italian food without tomatoes, or Swiss chocolate without cacao. These are all gifts from the native cultures of this hemisphere. Knowledge of medicine was also profound. For centuries, Native healers use plants to treat illnesses. Aspirin's active ingredient comes from willow bark, a remedy long used by Native Americans to relieve pain and fever. Quinine, a treatment for malaria, comes from the cinchona tree, first used by the Quechua people of the Andes. They also gave us things we use every day. The word barbecue comes from the Taino word barbacoa. Parkas, kayaks, and toboggans all come from Inuit and other northern peoples. Even team sports like lacrosse originated as a ceremonial game played by tribes in the eastern woodlands and Great Lakes region. The arrival of Europeans in 1492 marked a devastating turning point. The introduction of new diseases, to which native peoples had no immunity, caused a catastrophic population decline, one of the greatest demographic disasters in human history. This was followed by centuries of conflict, forced removal from ancestral lands, and policies aimed at erasing their cultures and languages. The Trail of Tears in the 1830s, for example, was the forced relocation of the Cherokee, Choctaw, and other southeastern nations from their homelands to territory in the West. Thousands died along the way from disease, starvation, and exposure. Boarding schools were established with the goal of forced assimilation, separating children from their families and forbidding them from speaking their native languages or practicing their traditions. The trauma from this history is deep and still affects communities today. But this is not just a story of tragedy. It is also a story of incredible resilience, survival, and resurgence. Against all odds, Native American peoples have held on to their identities. Today, there are over 570 federally recognized tribes in the United States alone, each with its own sovereign government. There is a powerful movement of cultural and linguistic revitalization happening right now. Young people are learning their ancestral languages, reviving traditional ceremonies, and relearning ancient skills. Native artists, musicians, writers, and filmmakers are sharing their stories with the world, challenging stereotypes and celebrating their heritage. From the halls of Congress to the front lines of environmental movements, Native voices are speaking out and leading the way. For anyone struggling with the weight of historical trauma or personal challenges, please know that support is available. Organizations like the Strong Hearts Native Helpline and We Are Native provide culturally specific resources and a safe space to talk. Reaching out is a sign of strength. The story of Native Americans is not a closed chapter of history. It is a living, breathing story that continues to unfold every single day. It's a story of ancient wisdom and modern innovation, of profound loss and incredible strength. By learning about their true history and diverse cultures, we not only honor the original peoples of this land, but we also gain a much richer and more accurate understanding of the world we all share. Thanks for joining me on this journey today. If you found this interesting, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that connect us to our shared past. See you next time.